Hey y'all, Wackyworm here with another Dwarf Fortress tutorial. This time we're going to talk about choosing a site for our first fortress location. Now we've already done world generation and all that good stuff, so in this main menu we're going to navigate to Start Playing, and then we're going to select Dwarf Fortress because we're playing in Dwarf Fortress mode, and then we're going to go through a brief loading screen. We're going to simulate 2 weeks worth of history. You can Google to figure out why that happens. It doesn't really pertain to these basic tutorials that I'm doing here. So once we do all that, we're presented with the Choose a Fortress Location screen, and there's kind of a lot of stuff going on here. You'll see these 3 maps before you. The upper leftmost map is the local map, and the most important part of this is down here in the bottom right, you'll see a 3x3 area of either highlighted or low-lighted tiles. These tiles define what you're actually looking at when you play Dwarf Fortress. These are the tiles that you have access to in terms of resources, building on, digging under, all that good stuff. So this is your starting area here. Everything in this surrounding area can certainly have an impact on your fortress, but you can't actually go to and look at it or interact with it on their terms from your area here. This is all you're going to have access to as you're playing the game. You can move this area around this local area using the U, H, K, and M keys, and that's going to move it around. You can also resize this, so instead of having a 3x3 area, you can do a 4x4 or 4x3 or whatever. That's done by holding down the Shift key and then doing that U, H, K, and M, same keys for moving it around. Now this will have quite a large impact on the processing power that Dwarf Fortress will need for running your game. Bigger areas have a lot more going on. They're going to take a lot more processing power in order to do. And you're actually going to see a much faster death due to just processing overload if you have a larger area. So definitely keep that in mind. This is probably the most important parameter you can set to ensure that Dwarf Fortress runs well on your computer. You can go as small as a 1-tile embark area if you're running on a Stone Age computer, and that's perfectly fine. But just keep that in mind as you're setting out your embark size here. Now the next map over, these 2 maps actually are the region and the world maps. They look very similar, and that's because when we did our world generation, we set sort of a medium-sized world. Anything larger than that, then you would definitely be able to see that this is a more zoomed-in version of this map. So because of that, we're just going to focus here on this one because this is kind of the most important one. We have our blinking cursor here, which we can move about with the arrow keys. And you can see as we move that around, we're updating both our local area and a bunch of text over here. Now this text over here is very important. This is what's describing the area that you're currently looking at in terms of the environment and the resources that are present there. This is very important, especially for new players to Dwarf Fortress, because there's so much to learn and so much to do. You don't want to start out in an environment that's very hostile or in an environment that does not have many resources. Especially for learning the game, you want to have all those things available to you so you can figure out what to do with them. And so we're definitely going to go over that, and I'm going to describe what all of these things mean and what you want to look for. Now at the very top here we have a name for the region we're looking at. So over here we're in the Hills of Packing, and we can move around, and that's going to stay the same until we move out of that area, which should be somewhere up here in this desert. So we can look around and see what different areas are named and how they look like and all that. If we come back down here to the Hills of Packing where we were a minute ago, you'll see that the biome type here is a tropical shrubland, and that has certain things that it contains, but they're better explained in these parameters down below. If we take a look at the first of those parameters, temperature, we see that our temperature is scorching. Temperature only really has an effect on the state of or the phase of water on the surface of your embark region. At scorching, which is the very highest level it can be, there will be no standing surface water. Rivers and oceans and stuff will be unaffected, but you will have no pools of stagnant or still water. They're going to immediately evaporate when you embark and will never be present again. As you move down into colder temperature types, the evaporation of the standing water is going to be limited more to the summer months, whereas in the winter months you can see some rain and stuff that'll fill those pools up, and then they'll evaporate as you get back warmer again. As you move down into the colder climates, you're going to start seeing water become ice, and this will actually be both rivers and standing water. They can become ice at first only in the winter months, but as you get down into a freezing temperature all year round, they will be ice. Now, unlike the scorching biome where there's really nothing you can do about evaporated water, there are things you can do with frozen water. You can unfreeze it using magma. That's a very advanced topic, but just so you know that you're not stuck with freezing water forever. Now, any water that is existing underground, that will be unaffected by the temperature, so you can safely use that water, although because it's underground, it can be a little bit tougher to find. So definitely keep that in mind. Definitely for your first fortress, keep that temperature in a nice mid-range. You want to have water there when you need it. So definitely keep an eye on that. The next option here for trees, we have a woodland. This is how many trees or how densely trees exist on your region. You definitely want to have a lot of trees out there so that you have good access to wood whenever you need it. So it's a good idea to keep this in the woodland area. You can see these things are color coded, so anything that's very green here is going to be good as far as the number of trees you have access to. As we move down, we have vegetation. So these are the bushes and plants and things that you can harvest in your world. Mostly we're talking about getting food like fruits and vegetables from them, or other things like plump helmets and stuff that we can brew into alcohol and things like that. Obviously, a lot of vegetation is a very good thing. It doesn't really have a negative impact. So the more vegetation, especially for early fortresses, the better. So you want to get this up into a densely vegetated area, and that'll become more green as you move into better options there. The next one down, the surroundings are calm. This is referencing how hostile the area is in terms of aggressive animals or even goblins and things like that. All of this pink area down here is evil goblin land. So if we were to go down into this pink area, you can see our surroundings are now sinister. So we definitely want to stay out of that. That's going to get us fewer raids, fewer thieves and stuff coming to rob our fortress and all. We definitely want to stay in with a calm surrounding for the early fortresses that we play on. Below that, you have a name for any rivers or brooks or creeks or anything like that that's going on in your area. And then below that, you have the resources that are available. In this particular location, there are only deep metals, which isn't a lot. That's not a lot, because as you see as we move up through here, we get a lot more options in terms of what's there. Sand is good for smelting into glass and stuff like that. Clay is good for making clay products. We have very deep soil. Soil is going to be where your dwarven farms are able to be located. If you don't know, your dwarven farms, at least your first ones, are going to be underground. They're going to have an underground requirement. And this defines how many layers are actually soil before you start getting into rock and things like that. So if you want to do a lot of farming, it's important to have deep soil. Next, you have shallow metals. Obviously, these are metals that are closer to the surface of the world, easier to mine, and that's a very convenient thing to have. And then we have the deep metals, which are the metals deep in the ground. There are a few other options here. Aquifers, if there was a chance for aquifers, they would show up here. We turn those off in the Lazy Noob Pack settings, which you can go back and see my first tutorial on if you're not familiar. And then we have at least one more option, and I'm not seeing it anywhere in this area. There we go. The Flux Stone layer. Flux Stone is what's required to smelt iron into steel. So, or iron ore into steel. So Flux Stone is also very important, and you want to make sure you have it. Otherwise, if you're lacking any of these things, especially metals and Flux Stone, I can guarantee you're going to have to trade for them at some point. So it's very important to have these resources available to you from the beginning of the game so you can learn how to process those things, how to dig them out, and all that kind of stuff. So that's very important. Now, it would become very tedious to manually move about this and check every single location to see if it meets our needs, right? Luckily, we have several options down here, one of which is a search function. This F key right here, find the desired location. So if we hit the F key, in the top right corner here, we see a list of the different parameters that we can search by, and we can actually go through and set to make sure that things fit what we want them to be. Ones we don't care about so much, like elevation, we can leave as not available. But others we do care about, like temperature, we want to set to a medium. We definitely want a Flux Stone layer. We definitely want some shallow metals, deep metals. We want at least a little bit of soil. And clay would be nice too. It would also be nice to have a river, because it's always good to have access to water from the beginning of the game. We can now press enter to do the search, and this thing is going to go through. Areas in red do not meet our specifications. Other areas do. Unfortunately, it looks like displaying those search results is bugged in 4303. So that's unfortunate. But as it was searching, we could kind of get a glimpse of things that met our needs. And I think right in here would not be a bad area to embark in. You'll notice that we are very close to a dwarven civilization here, but we're friends with the dwarves. That's okay. So I'm going to look around, and yeah, this is looking pretty good. Yeah, this looks like a pretty good location here. And then I'm also going to use my UHKM keys to navigate this around to make sure that I locate my fortress embark area over some river tiles here. And that's going to ensure I have access to water. Once that's done, we can hit the E for embark, and it's going to ask us if we're absolutely sure we want to embark here. We'll press enter, and then we're ready to choose our embark settings, which are going to be things like what animals and items we're taking along with us and what sort of skills those dwarves have. However, that is for a future episode. If you want to see more content, please subscribe. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. And if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, any need for clarification, please leave it in the comment section below. I'm happy to help you with all this, and I will see you all in the next episode.